that roar when you ran out just puts goosebumps on the back of your neck.
Walsh went straight through. Andrews there.
He's just forever looking for an opportunity.
Exhilarating football.
That's a good sign of a good team.
Accelerates and punches through them.
And he's only going to get better.
And the hammer stands them up. And Queensland going to do it again.
Well, thanks for tuning in once again to Queenslander as we count down to a big battle of Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium on Friday night. The new rivalry in the NRL, the Broncos up against the Dolphins, Lockie, but it's very much an injury-ravaged Broncos side. No Adam Reynolds, no Payne Haas, no Brendan Piakura, no Dean Mariner. Looks as though Jordan Ricky won't play as well. Could this be a really tough stretch of games for the Broncos starting from now?
Yeah, look, I think you always need a bit of luck to have successful years, and maybe at the moment they're not getting the luck they need, the Broncos, but it'll turn. At some point their luck will get better, and they're just having a bad run with injuries at the moment. I think you just got to hang in there and play with plenty of commitment, and if you can get a win while you're under a bit of pressure with injuries, then that's a bonus. But at the moment, they just got to hang in there, play for each other, and that'll be their best chance of winning.
Yeah, it may sound very silly, Adam, but sometimes having a few injuries increases the insistence on the other players that they have to perform at their level best. And when there's a couple of key players that are missing from the side, it certainly will invite plenty of other guys in the team to produce their best and perhaps come up with a season best performance so far. Who knows? Only time will tell, but these games are rarely wasted by those taking part in them.
And Kevy was really disappointed in his press conference after that narrow loss to the Melbourne Storm. Do you think part of that was factoring into his mind of the injuries we got, it's going to become more difficult?
I think just Melbourne's been a bit of a nemesis for the Bronx over a long time. There's a lot of talk about, not winning in Melbourne since 2016. So I think and the fact that we were so close, we were in front for long periods of time, I think it was just a frustrating loss, So I don't think that's a reflection of the injuries scenario. It was just a frustrating loss.
Kevy spent a bit of time there as well.
Yeah.
There was a bit of learning go on at Melbourne, and he's always regarded Melbourne as a very strong place that has extraordinary character existing in the team, and I think he would have been fairly happy and celebrating had the Broncos managed to get over the top of Melbourne. But I'm sure that he'll come forward and he'll say, look, it's not the end of the road, it's disappointing. It'll just give us even more reason to produce our best the next time we clash.
That game was so exciting. That was the game of the year for mine so far.
Yeah, all-out attack, and obviously both coaches were disappointed with their defence, but it was, I reckon the footy's been outstanding.
Yeah.
There hasn't been too many bludger games. They've all been, high quality, good.
Yeah.
It was a great shot of Craig Bellamy at full time, looking befuddled of I don't know if I'm happy that we won or disappointed that we conceded 32 points.
Well, I saw the press conference. He was asked, would you take, because he beat Penrith 8-0 and then beat the other grand finalists 34-32, and he goes, look, I'll take the 8-0 any day of the week.
Yeah.
As a fan, I'd take 34-32. What?
As a coach.
7 days a week. Yeah, as a coach, Lockie's right. That's questionable, but I get quite amused watching Craig, how often he bites his lip, and I think that he's even doing that to stay in control. But they're two teams that pretty much cast your mind back every time that they've clashed. It's basically been a wonderful game on every occasion, and usually there's a coach that's relieved and a coach that's disappointed there. They get to be able to change over on times, but that was another very good game that certainly made Rugby League the winner on the night.
Yeah, and in that Storm game, someone who was in the coach's box was Reece Walsh. Wasn't wearing his Cowboys hat this time. He's back on the field now this week, Lockie. 2 weeks earlier than expected with that facial fracture. How tricky can they be to manage? Because it's kind of going into the unknown.
I think Molly Meldrum took his hat.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
What was the question again?
Yeah, the facial fractures. Because you had one in your career.
Oh, look, I think the fact he didn't need to get operated on meant that it was, it was a minor fracture. And look, in today's game, obviously the head is well protected, even though there is head contact with the head, as we've seen a bit of late. But he's going to wear the headgear. You just got to get through the first couple of tackles and away you go. Look, I don't the doctors wouldn't let him go out there if he wasn't capable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Lockie. The doctors are in charge of that decision-making process, and while it might be the coach and the player that remind the doc that they'd like to be playing in this one, if there's any suggestion of long-term damage, I don't think they'd make the decision to gamble. So I think that he must feel okay, and pretty much, I suggest that after he takes the first couple of tackles up and has contact on him, he'll start to feel pretty comfortable.
And when was it, Lockie? Was it a prelim final? You had that Fogarty break?
Yeah.
You got a helicopter to Sydney, was that it?
Yeah. No, it brought back some memories when Reece did his injury because he had to come back on the bus. But yeah, prelim against it was against St George. We won the game in Golden Point, and I got a fractured cheekbone out of it. I had an operation the next day, and the doc said, I said, we've got a game in Sydney next week against Manly. He goes, well, first things of all, you can't fly high altitude. So I sat there for a couple of minutes and thought, what about low altitude? Because I had a mate who has a chopper, so he gave me a lift.
Yeah, I remember that as being one of the highlights of the year. Certainly for the news, it was dramatic, and there were plenty of people suggesting that that's not right, that hasn't happened at all. Well, it did, and it's one of those highlight moments in rugby league that you get quite extraordinary about. But as a player, I think you can't wait to have your first contact during the game, so you can lose a little bit of the fear. I ended up with a fracture in the eye socket as well, and had my sight sort of play a little bit of a strange role. But I was very fortunate; it was right at the end of the game, about 5 minutes to go or something. So it wasn't anything that was quite dangerous. But serious injuries like that can't be gambled with too often. I think there'll be a common sense decision made.
Yeah, well, I remember when we were leaving training, I'd had a stealth car ready to take me to Purtell Park at Arden there.
Is that where the chopper left from?
That's where the chopper landed,
it's away from the media.
Yeah.
And look, when I was getting on the chopper, I had the intention I was going to play.
Yeah.
We were playing Manly, and Tony Williams was playing for them at the time, and I could picture him. I was having nightmares actually for a couple of nights about him running at me. But in the end, I think it was Thursday, we made the call. The doctor and the coach called me and said that we can't do this.
I do remember working, and the suggestion was that Lockie may be flying to Melbourne. We didn't know anything about it, but we were hunting around trying to get the story that no other station had. It was quite remarkable, and then to see that the decision had been made, there was a little bit of ease for everyone.
Yeah,
chasing.
Common sense prevailed.
How long did the chopper take from Brisbane to Sydney?
It took sort of maybe 6 hours. It had a couple of stops. There was a bit of headwind going down, but I've got to say that it's such a scenic ride following the coastline, because obviously when you're in a commercial plane you're so high, but when you get low, the water on the coastline from Brisbane to Sydney is
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Stop in, see the big banana, get a few bananas off Saba on the way.
There's a lot of bait fish too.
Yeah. Well, with Reece Walsh coming back to the team, it pushes Tristan Sailor out, but he's still on the bench. But potentially, would there have been a temptation to put Ezra Mann and Tristan Sailor in the halves to have like a lively halves combination?
Yeah, I just think you probably lose a fair bit of game management, game direction. Look, I think when Jock filled in for Adam, which was the hardest game you could possibly think of, is Penrith in Penrith.
Yep.
So it wasn't an easy assignment, but he gets another opportunity. And I think he, like for like, they need that sort of direction from their number 7. I think Jock's the logical choice there.
Yeah, and I think Sailor he'll appreciate the inclusion, even if he's on the bench. He'd be a guy that will work out, but it'll be quite interesting to watch how Jock goes. There's not a lot of people that know too much about him, but he has the full confidence of his teammates.
Well, I think Corey Oates might move into the back row at some point, and then Tristan will come out there. So, it'd be interesting to see how he uses him.
Yeah, I was watching training the other day, so Sailor, Walsh, Mam and Madden were all on the field at the same time. So Sailor was actually almost playing that floating 13 that Jake Granville kind of does for the Cowboys, but obviously a better ball player.
Yeah, Queensland, under Mal used to do that a bit. Cooper Cronk used to come on and play that sort of like roving back rower that could just be a link man. So
You do.
and Sean Berrigan used to do it. So, maybe that's what Kevy's thinking.
Yeah, that's the future with HIAs. You need to be really versatile. The Dolphins, unfortunately, very much under strength for this Battle of Brisbane as well, too, Walsh. So they're missing Felice Kafusi, Herbie Farnworth injured on the top of Tom Gilbert, Connolly Lemuelu already being injured. Who does it favour? Like with balancing these injuries, like who's better off or who's worse off, or it's a draw?
Well, Kafusi, I see him as a costly replacement coming in to take over from him. Certainly won't be easy, but boy, he's one of those guys that I think makes the guys in the opposition every week. Not in the Broncos, but every week think twice about the angles that they're running on and who they intend to run at. He's a player that inspires his teammates as well, makes them work so much more, and I think he guarantees that when he's on board, it is a much tougher Redcliffe pack that will go out there, and he'll create doubt in the mind of some of the intended ball receivers, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're two huge losses, Kafusi and Herbie.
Yeah, well, I think Herbie was probably, looking at this game and really looking forward to it. So that would have been a really good battle out there. There would have been Herbie on Selwyn. So Herbie's right side, I think. No, he plays left.
He's left side,
It would have been Herbie on Katoni.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been a good battle. But look, Adam being not there for the Broncos, that's a big out. But let's just call the injury stakes a draw.
Yeah, should have been a gentleman's agreement. Defer the game later in the year, like have a mid-year bye. And we get better. But one player who we've been told is definitely playing, Tom Flegler, he would have loved the fact that he's going up against his ex-teammates. Like he's the kind of guy that will be really motivated for this.
Motivated, but it was a shoulder complaint, so that it'd be interesting to see. Like he likes to whack him.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see whether he's got that same aggression. I'm pretty sure the coach be telling him just to play with controlled aggression. Yeah. But equally, there'd probably be a few Broncos boys wanting to test out that shoulder.
Yeah, for sure, I agree with you, Lockie. I had written down that he's a very proud man, but the most important point for him is to remain cool. He's got to be the old cool, calm and collected, do what the coach wants, and I guess he couldn't be in a better spot than with Bennett directing those instructions. I think it's going to be so much more comfortable. But it'll be a wonderful battle up front. There's going to be a number of guys that put out the pride factor and have that inspire them in their performance. It'll be a battle royale.
And all across Brisbane, you can sense a growing legion of Dolphins supporters. The Broncos have jabs. They call them Redcliffe. They refuse to call them Dolphins. Can you see this rivalry growing into one of the best in the competition?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think having, a lot of former Broncos staff at Redcliffe and, Wayne at Redcliffe, then you got a couple of key Bronco players that have left to go there. Yeah. So it definitely builds a rivalry. But, one of the reasons why the Redcliffe was brought into the competition was that, the Broncos did a business case on it and they were going to be more profitable with them there because of the rivalry. It's another rivalry that's been built, another Queensland derby, which is huge for the game.
And games like that certainly always have been fantastic to watch. In the days when Broncos Cowboys, when that was a premier game for most of the rugby league fans in Queensland, and of course on the Gold Coast as well, it is sensational. So I think it's certainly, the rivalry will be there. There'll be enormous amounts of pride on show, and I should imagine the Dolphins, when they run onto the field, they'll be ready to play. They'll have had the inspirations come from the coach, and I think that Kevy will be working very much overtime to ensure that his guys remain cool, calm and collected. But pride's been pretty obvious at the Broncos, certainly in their last few training performances. They do look like they're very well inspired and quite determined to achieve success in this game.
And Dolphins too, reminder, they're on top of the table at the moment, so chance to make a statement, get a big scalp against last year's runners-up in the NRL. The Cowboys, they face the Eels. on Saturday night. Is this a bit of a danger game for them, Lockie? Eels coming off a heavy loss to the Raiders. Are the Cowboys mature enough to deal with this scenario?
It is a danger game. Playing Parramatta at CommBank is no easy task, regardless of who's in the team. And the fact they got, convincingly beaten last week. Brad Arthur's dropped a couple, so they'll be up for the game. And I think Todd Payton would be telling his players that they're going into a hostile environment and they need to bring their best game. So it'd be interesting to see, because I think when the Cowboys are on, they look really, really good, but there's times where they're still lapsing. And I think if they're going to lapse at all this week, they could pay for it.
Yeah, definitely, Lockie. I agree with you there. And I don't mean to be critical or suggestive with it, but the Cowboys appear to be a little bit short in the leadership department on who stands up during the tough moments of the game. I mean, it's not the easiest challenge in the world to make sure that you take on, but it doesn't appear to have been anywhere near their best performances so far. And to have the inspiration that's attached to this game inspire them, well, I guess that could take place. But they've got to remember that it's about time that they started to feel confident in their own displays.
And that could, it could be a reflection. They went with new leaders, but they're young. Ruben and Tommy Dearden, so they're still learning their trade. But I just think they need to bring their intensity and they need to maintain it for a long period of time.
Yeah. The question, Adam, was from you on are they mature enough? Well, I guess time will tell in this one, but the suggestions were after their performances in the big games last year that they proved that they are at a level now where they can feel quite confident and remain cool, calm and collected in the most difficult times throughout the course of the match. Well, they've been tested already this year, so it is time for them to go out there and use those displays to further increase their self-belief. Yeah,
you're right what you say, Lockie. Watching the Cowboys, it's almost they're 10 out of 10 or they're 2 out of 10. They're so up and down.
And it happens, you can see it within 80 minutes. It might change 2 or 3, 4 times in a game. We talk about the co-captains, but I think the key is those older players, like Jordan McLean, Chad Townsend, Val Holmes. They're the guys that, all those, even though all those young players will be looking up to them, they're the ones that got to lead the way.
I know we have spoken about it, Adam, but last week's performance from the Cowboys, I mean, it was at a level that impressed some, but I don't think it impressed their coach 100%, nor the players. So they'll think that they can perform much better than what they're showing so far, and that I guess is the perfect way to inspire themselves.
Yeah, the team they beat, the Titans, 35-22. I think the scoreline flattered the Titans. Yeah. It flattered the Cowboys and it also flattered the Titans in a way, because the 2 tries the Titans scored were... The Titans only looked good when Chad Townsend was bizarrely sin-binned for that, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't a hip drop. But the Cowboys looked as though potentially they could win that game 50-10, but it got back to 35-22. But how alarming is that for the Titans?
For the Titans, well... Again, we've said it last week. They're still trying to work out how to play, how the coach wants them to. They're just getting used to Des, and in that process, they've now obviously there's been haven't won a game. There's a lot of losses mounting up, and they're losing their confidence. At some point, they'll break through, but the next 4 or 5 weeks is some pretty tough games. So it's getting pretty dire for them, and. I know Des has stayed pretty solid with his team. He's being patient, and I think the players need to reward the coach for that patience. But it's not a great start, and they need to find some points soon.
Yeah, most of the discussion after the game was about Des going off and expressing his disappointment with the team. Well, I think that may have been there, but there's also the look upon the players' faces. They know that they are a much better team than what they're producing at the moment. So to have Des there, I guess, is a benefit for them. Only time will tell, because they certainly need to start chalking up some wins if they want to be regarded as somebody that gets respected from their opposition week in, week out.
Well, confidence is so big. Well, as you would remember, they'll be a totally different team when they get that first win.
Yeah.
It's just how far away is that first win?
Yeah.
Do you think it could come this weekend against the Raiders down in Canberra? Probably not.
Probably not, but at some point they'll surprise someone and they'll get that first win, and then they'll get their confidence back and they'll be totally different. But at the moment, while they're still trying to find the way they want to play, they're down on confidence.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about adjusting to a new game plan that they're still becoming used to, and it's easier said than done making that game plan work quite instantly, but to have that sort of opposition on their territory, that's not comfortable at all.
And they come up against a familiar face in Jamal Fogarty, who's now running the show for the Raiders. A couple of years ago, I think I said it was the dumbest recruitment retention decision I've seen in the past few years. The Titans letting Fogarty go, and guess what? All of a sudden they don't have any established playmakers outside of Kieran Foran. How much would they be regretting that now, do you think?
Oh, enormously. I remember that day perfectly, Adam, and I think I was that far behind in then making the agreement. We were both enormous fans of him, and surely they've let the pain come through, they've accepted it, and wisely would have moved on. They realised it wasn't too much that they could do from it, but the decision-making process plays an enormous role in the future of a club, and that wasn't one that too many people at all agreed with at the time.
Well, as you look at all the halves in our game, the game-managing halves that have got a good kicking game, good defensive players, the most of them, maybe except for Nathan, they're all, mature and they've been around a lot longer, so they're very hard to find. And whether that's a development coaching, hole in the game, I don't know. But they're becoming more and more rare, these halves that can manage a game. And I guess when you let one go, as did South Sydney, if you don't have the right answer behind you, then you can pay a price.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So Fogarty will lead the Raiders into battle against the Titans. Just finally on the Titans, do you think that's their biggest problem at the moment? The half spine combination, they just don't seem to get it right. What they looked the best against the Cowboys when AJ Brimson had his hands on the ball. Like, to me, they've got to find a way to get him more ball.
Yeah. Well, it's always been the conundrum. There's been sort of, getting 5 into 4.
Yeah.
Now, AJ's been out in the centre there, but bring him in close to the ball makes him more unpredictable, without a doubt. But, and look, maybe Kieran goes into 7 at some point.
Yeah.
I'll leave the powers that be at the Titans work out what the best outcome or the best scenario is.
Yeah, it's a big decision to make. So I agree, though, mate. The number 7 seems to be an issue for them at the moment. So does leadership. And certainly after losing Tino, that is not going to be something that inspires a lot of confidence around the team. I'm sure Desi will remind the players that one player doesn't make a team, but he is certainly one that inspires those around him to work. Still, they've got to come up with something that is more creative in their set plays, and they really do appear to be just lacking a little bit of that in the moment. The creativity that should be on show is sadly not there at the moment. But who knows, we might be just a game away, let's hope so, because they've got a whole pile of very talented young men there who are quite capable of playing well.
And one of the best playmakers still in the competition, our Queensland State of Origin captain, Daly Cherry Evans, talked that Manly is in negotiations to extend his contract beyond the end of 2025, which is currently the deal he has going there at the Sea Eagles. He'd be 37, do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what we just touched on, I think they're so hard to find, these game-managing halves with experience. And look, if you don't have another like-for-like type player coming through, obviously wouldn't have the experience of Daly, but if you don't have a like-for-like coming through your system, then why would you let him go? Unless you had a deep desire to retire. I mean, Cameron played till, 38 or 30? Cameron Smith, that is.
38.
So
37, I think. Yeah, but anyway, either side of that, yeah.
But, his major role is just giving the team direction out there. So communicating his kicking game, all that sort of stuff. It just allows everyone around him to just focus on what their job is. So they're like the conductor of an orchestra. They're the ones that just sort of take a lot of pressure off the rest of the team. So if he still wants to play, I've got no issue, and I think it'd be good for the club to keep him on.
Yeah, I think he's going well. DCE, he's playing the game the way that he wants to do it. He hasn't been smashed about too much at all, so his defensive displays too have been the part that have impressed me. He hasn't been getting knocked around at all, and he's still displaying the same creativity in attack, which has been so successful for him over the years. The big point, though, is his value to the team. And I think without him, the Sea Eagles wouldn't be going quite as well as they're going at the moment, although many may question that. But his displays certainly have been very comfortable and making the rest of the boys feel very good.
Is it a risk, though, paying $1 million a year for a player that old? Or
I don't think you pay him $1 million. If he wants to keep playing, and it generally happens at the back end of your career, you start to take a little bit less.
Yeah.
Then you get a job at the Broncos Leagues Club. Is that what happens at the Broncos?
Yeah. No, none of that. I genuinely think if he wants to keep playing, he's playing. He's not doing it for the money.
No.
Yeah.
I think he's just doing it because he wants to keep competing, he wants to help the club, and I don't think being on the same money he's on now is going to be critical to keeping him there. Like you've got to be diligent with your salary cap, and I don't think Daly would be chasing north of $1 million beyond his 35th birthday.
And having seen, he's still got that magnetic attraction. In the representative game, he'd still love to be involved with that, but that certainly will become tougher and tougher. But it is, I think that they've been quite good performances from him at the moment, but he's a very proud man, Daly, and I think that he'd like to be able to retire on his terms and certainly go out with a bang.
Do you still think he's got a couple more years in Origin?
Well, again, it depends on who's behind him. I think, Tommy Dearden.
Yeah. And then Sam Walker, maybe.
Sam Walker, and I think if he's still keen to play at that level and he's still playing at club and he's got the form, then he'll retain his spot.
What was it for you guys when you decided to retire from Origin? What was the?
Well, I didn't retire from Origin. I thought about it at the back end, but I think just wanted to focus on club football and just less travel, just 1 week, one game. 1 week, one game at a time just started to appeal because everything just got. But I think they schedule players' commitments pretty good now. Like they make sure that players can get through a year and not feel too fatigued. But I played right till the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, mine was a family matter. I found out my daughter Jamie Lee was profoundly deaf. The day before the game, and I remember saying straight before kickoff, I walked up to Tosser Turner and said, "This is it, Toss. This is the last game for me." Just found out my daughter's profoundly deaf, and he said to me, "I'm glad you made that decision because if you didn't, I would have told you to." You've got a family to look after, and that's something that plays a role in every footy player's lifetime. And I think 99% of all the players would have made exactly the same decision to try and take care of the family. And
just finally on DCE, do you ever see him leaving Manly? Like if they can't come to a deal, could potentially maybe the Dolphins or the Titans or even the Broncos after Adam Reynolds retires slot in, or do you think he's Manly for life?
I don't think he'll leave Manly because he's been there. I think he wants to be a one team, one player. But if they couldn't come to an agreement and he still wanted to play football, there'll be someone out there. Like I said, they're pretty rare. Pretty rare, those type of players.
The Titans are paying $3 million to come to the Gold Coast. That's how much they need a playmaker.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. Like Lockie, he'd want to stay at Manly until his retirement. He loves the place. He's always described what a fantastic place it is and how it helped him prolong his career greater than if he had been at another club. He probably didn't think that he'd be hanging around till 37, perhaps 38 years of age. Who knows? He might want to become the first 40-year-old halfback that we've seen in a long time. I gravely doubt it, but he he is a player that's been helped along by some wonderful support.
I think if they couldn't come to an agreement, it'd be another, and he wanted to keep playing, it'd be another Adam Reynolds situation. Because someone will pick him up and he'll have a huge impact.
Yeah, and the record he broke at Manly was Cliffy Lyons. One of the highlights for me in the week was watching all the Cliffy Lyons vision from back in the day. What was it like playing against him, Lockie?
He's a genius.
Yeah.
He was like a magic trick. He's just his sleight of hand, his passing. He was great to watch. I would have only played him a handful of times. You would have played against him.
Yeah, only had a couple. It was the Broncos' very first game, and to be honest, we were going to win that and always win that quite comfortably, I think. But he was a guy I certainly enjoyed the challenge of, because he was the creative spark for Manly, and I also used to have to put up with Fatty every time that we'd come up against Manly, and he said, there's a lion's roar that's about to take place, and hang the phone up, and so his creative skills were very good, and I think we all love playing against guys like that, because it guarantees that you're going to have to be at your best on that occasion if you're going to be any chance of winning the game. So it was good to play against Cliff, and a shame for him that he's lost that record. But I'm sure that he'll remind everybody that they were different days. We were working men in those days where we'd go to work from 9 to 5 and not be professional footballers. But well.
Yeah, I always loved Rabs' called line to Menzies growing up on those Manly games. Steve Menzies scored so many tries off the hip.
Cliffy
Lyons.
You asked Beaver how good Cliffy was.
He swears by him. Yeah,
he was a very, very unique player and great to watch.
Yeah, we can talk about Cliffy Lyons all day, but Friday night is the focus. Nine's Wide World of Sports. If you can't get to Suncorp Stadium, lock it into Channel 9, the Battle of the Brisbane Broncos up against the Dolphins.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.